What's going on, everyone? So here in SoCal, Rockfish season is about to open, and that's going to be March 1st in SoCal. That doesn't apply to places like Central Cal and NorCal. I do believe Central Cal opens in April. So in preparation for Rockfish season, I'm going to start here at the California DFW website. And I'm going to go ahead and scroll down to the Rockfish section. And there are some important changes this year. The depth limit was expanded from 360 feet to 450 feet. So now you can fish up to 450 feet in SoCal. And again, don't assume this is the case for Central Cal or NorCal. I don't know how much of a practical impact it'll have for kayak fishermen, because it takes a lot of time and effort and energy to send something down to 450 feet. And this section right here is kind of important as well, because I think the depth limit of 360 feet was imposed, I'm assuming, to protect some of these species, these specific species, okay? Black rockfish, I have not seen many, if at all, in SoCal. They are very common in Central Cal and NorCal. Canary, I have not seen in Redondo Beach or SoCal. Yellow eye, I have not seen. Now this one right here is kind of interesting. The bronze spotted rockfish. Okay. And here's why it's interesting. Okay, so this is a picture of the bronze back rockfish. Oh, I'm sorry, the bronze spotted rockfish here. Okay. Now the thing that's kind of interesting and I'm a little bit leery about it, because this looks a lot like a red or a vermilion. So I'm gonna have to kind of study up on this and make sure I don't make any mistakes. The cow cod, again, I think is a deep water species. I have never caught one. Okay, so cabezon, pretty much the same thing. Opens in March and closes, from January 1st through February 28th. And again, the new depth limit applies to them as well here. And the 10 fish limit still applies aggregate. Okay, so I'm not going to explain every nuance of this. So aggregate means you can have 10 total ground fish. So do check this out. Kelp and rock greenlings, I have not seen many, if at all, in SoCal. Again, more of a Central Cal, NorCal species. Lingcod, there is. Okay, so same deal, 450 feet, but the bag limit, okay, has changed. So it used to be 2 fish, but now it is only 1 fish. All right, and the size limit is still the same at 22 inches. The sculpin, or the scorpion fish, it appears it has changed as well. Okay, and let me scroll up and make a note of something here. All right, so obviously, to anyone that's boat based, and that's kayakers as well, the ground fish or rockfish season is closed from January through the end of February. But if you are a shore based fisherman, okay, if you are fishing off the rocks, then there is no closure in terms of rockfish. So you can target rockfish from the shore year round. Okay, back to the sculpin. They used to have a closed season, I believe, and it was different than the other rockfish. But if I'm reading this correctly, now they are open year round for all anglers and divers. Same deal here, less than 450 feet. Okay, so having said that, I'm going to do a pre-fishing, put together a plan of sorts, and then I'll be trying to go out for the opener on the 1st of March, assuming that the conditions allow for it. We've had a pretty rainy and pretty cold winter in Southern California. So anyways, we'll put together a pre-fishing plan and go from there. Okay, let's start by talking a little bit about gear. I should let you know ahead of time, I'm really hesitant about plugging any specific brand or model because first and foremost, I don't want anyone to get turned off. I mean, especially if you're a young kid, I don't want you to think, well, yeah, it's cool, but I can't do what he does because I don't have that kind of gear. If you've watched any of my videos, you'll understand that I am not an expert at any one thing. I just like trying different things. So even if you don't have this specific gear, it doesn't mean that you can't do it, okay? You may have to, take a different pathway, but you can do it, trust me. I'm gonna start with the rod. This is a picture of an 8-foot rod. And I think if you're kayak fishing, you want a minimum of a 7-foot rod, just so that you can kind of take the tip and work it from one side of the bow of the kayak to the other. For, again, 450 feet, you want a rod that can handle a minimum, probably like 15 to 25 pound line, because everything that you send down, whether it be a jig or a bait rig with a torpedo sinker, is going to be heavier, because you need that stuff to get down quickly, because there are forces at work pushing you around. Above the water, it may be wind pushing your kayak around. Beneath the water, it might be current moving your rig around as it descends. And as I've mentioned in the past, some of these marks at those depths, they're not really like super expansive. So dropping that stuff down on top of their heads is pretty important. Okay, so this is the rod. And then this is a picture of a reel and a sinker. Sinker is easier, so I'm going to start with that. For 400, 450, you're going to probably need a minimum, I would imagine, like 12 ounces of torpedo sinker, and probably more realistic, like 16 ounces. And you want a torpedo sinker because it offers the least amount of resistance as it's descending. The reel, probably your life will be made easier if you have a high-speed reel. Okay, so something like 6 to 1, 7 to 1 will enable you to pick the stuff up from the bottom quickly. In terms of line capacity and line type, I would probably maybe go with like 50 or 60 pound braid as your main line. Your leader should be maybe 6 feet of, I'm gonna go with like 40 pound, 30, 40 pound mono or fluoro. It should hold. I mean, even if you think you're going to be, descending down to 450, again, by the time the current takes a hold of it, you're probably going to need a reel that holds like 600 feet. So what, like 200 yards minimum of, again, 50, 60 pound braid. If you are a jig fisherman, I probably would not recommend sending anything less than 8 ounces down there. And you want something that's going to be kind of slim in profile so that it'll knife through the water as it descends. Okay, so in terms of radar or sonar, there are other implications to fishing really deep water as well. I am not an expert, so a lot of this is going to be trial and error. And even if you look on YouTube, there is going to be a lot of material on how to use your sonar at 400, 450 feet of water. I'm assuming that, like any other signal, the further away you get, the more attenuated the signal will become, and the less reliable it will be. So I'm going to try and just visualize this for both you and I. So I'm going to pretend this is your kayak here. So in terms of just general principles, from what I've gathered, the size of the sonar cone, okay, is roughly about 1/3 of the total water depth. Okay, so if you are in, let's say, like 20 feet of water, the size of the cone is only going to be about roughly 7 feet. Right, so if you're paddling in 20 feet of water and you see a blip on your radar and you drop down, I mean, you can be almost assured that you're going to be dropping down somewhere near the fish. So if you see a blip on the radar here, okay, and you drop down, you're going to be somewhere close. Now, if you are in 400 feet of water, okay, that means the cone is all of a sudden going to be now like 100 and what? About 133 feet, right? And so, let's say you're paddling along here, like so, and then your sonar picks up something on the very edges, okay? Now, that's going to appear on your sonar screen. So let's say that you see something, you know, you get here on the very fringe of the sonar. Now, you don't know which edge this little mark or whatever is. You know, it could pop up here, okay? Or it could pop up here, and it's still going to represent on the screen as the same thing, right? Again, you're trying to take something 3D and represent it in 2D. So let's say you pick up something on the sonar and you drop down, right? So you drop, this is your kayak, and you drop down right here. And so where you drop down could literally be like 70 feet away from where the fish are, where the structure is, right? You know, it's pretty much assumed that rockfish are not, you know, free-ranging, free-moving fish. They're pretty much sedentary, right? Again, you have to drop down right on top of their heads to get bit. If you're off by 20 feet, you are not going to get bit. So I think the approach is to be really patient, right? You're not going to drop down on every blip on the sonar because you just don't have that kind of energy and time, right? Every time you drop down, it's a lot of time and effort and energy. So you got to be patient and look for something on the screen that's there a long time, right? So there's got to be something on your screen for a good 10-15 seconds. It's got to be expansive because, again, the chances of you know, dropping down at 450 feet and then hitting a mark that's like 20 feet wide is slim and none. So we're going to have to take a different approach in terms of being efficient as to when and where we drop down as well. So to summarize visually, okay, let's take a look at some of the screenshots from my sonar, and we're gonna have to use our imagination and just disregard this number. Okay, so if I'm paddling along in 20 feet of water and I see a little blip like this on the sonar, yeah, I might drop down just because I'm curious, and it's only gonna take a few seconds for me to find out if anyone's home. Same thing with maybe something like that, you know, in 20-40 feet of water, yeah, I might drop down because I'm curious. But if I'm in 450 feet of water, there's no way I'm gonna drop down on something like this, because again, it's kind of like hitting, you know, or finding a needle in a haystack. In deeper water, I'm looking for something like more like this, you know, for a good 15 seconds on my screen before I devote the time, the energy to drop down on these fish or the structure. So that about wraps it up for the theoretical portion of my next outing. I know it's much more fun to watch people catch big fish, but I enjoy the process, I really do. And I hope you guys learn along with me, because I think that before you can catch fish or big fish, you got to kind of put in the time and understand the theory behind it. So as always, thank you for dropping by. Be safe, have fun, and we will see you on the next outing, which should be coming up pretty soon. Bye for now.